My son called from the airport to say my daughter-in-law had just boarded his flight, while her shower was still running upstairs. My name is Evelyn May Carter, Evie to most folks on our block. I'm 72 years old, born in Jackson, Mississippi, where red clay stains your Sunday shoes and the choir keeps time with its feet. These days, I live in a quiet row house in Jersey City, New Jersey, with my eldest, Daniel, his wife Lauren, and their little boy, Jaden, who is 7 and thinks the world begins and ends with a basketball and a box of crayons. My youngest, Michael, is a pilot who spends more time in the sky than I ever did on road trips. That morning was ordinary, in the exact way you don't notice until ordinary goes missing. The kettle breathed a little white cloud over the stove. Jaden Hopstep searched for a runaway sneaker. Sun came in sideways through the blinds, striping the kitchen table like someone had laid a piano over it. Upstairs, the water hammered the tub. Lauren sang under the spray, off-key, but it made the house feel warm, like someone had thrown a quilt over the day. If you had asked me, right then, to describe Lauren, I would have said the thing I have said in church basements and grocery lines for years. My son married a good woman. She was neat without being fussy, kind without performing it. She checked homework with a pencil tucked behind her ear and texted me pictures of coupons like they were family portraits. When I told the ladies at Bible study that my daughter-in-law had a gift for making a house cooperate, they nodded the way women nod when they understand something by bone memory. The phone buzzed on the kitchen table. I wiped my hands, old habit, as if sound might smear, and saw Michael on the screen. 3 minutes, Ma, he said, breathless. I could hear the airport behind him, metal voices, rolling suitcases, someone laughing too loud. I can't talk long. Listen, don't panic. Michael, I said, and the name was the handle I put on my racing heart. You got me panicking already. He lowered his voice. A woman just boarded my flight. Passport says Lauren Williams. She looks like Lauren. She came through the gate. She's in seat 14A to Miami, then Santiago. There are silences you remember more than words. I looked at the ceiling. Water hissed. Then a shower curtain ring chimed against the rod. Lauren's voice floated down. Evie, you want green tea or regular? Michael waited. Ma? Lauren's upstairs, I said. I kept my voice very calm, like the time Jaden asked me if God had a house key. She's in the shower. On the line, my boy's breath thinned to a thread. The passport looked real, he said finally. I have to go. Then the line went dead, cutting the morning clean in half. I stood very still, a hand on the kettle, not because it needed me, but because I needed to hold something. The house kept acting like a house. Water, light, little boy muttering about Velcro, but my body had already stepped into a room where the furniture wasn't where I'd left it. Upstairs, the bathroom door opened with that soft gasp old doors make. Lauren padded into the hallway. I could picture it without looking. White towel twisted high on her head, steam like a small fog clinging to her shoulders. Evie, she called again, cheerful, ordinary, exactly as expected. Green or regular? Green, I said. My voice sounded like it had put on someone else's shoes. She came down a minute later, robe tied in a solid knot, the towel turban tilting like a crown that hadn't decided to stay. Morning, sunshine, she told Jaden, kissing the top of his head. He wriggled away with a grin big enough to be trouble. She poured hot water over a leaf bag, set it in front of me, and smiled. The smile landed true. My hands did not. Michael called, I said, watching steam unfurl. He's at JFK. Another long haul? She glanced at the clock and reached for the bread. Her movements were tidy, automatic, the choreography of 100 breakfasts. I told myself in that moment that I was an old woman who had misheard in a noisy kitchen. I told myself that airports held hundreds of faces and at least a dozen kinds of mistakes. I told myself a list of reasonable things, but reason didn't explain why my heart had already started taking notes. "Long haul," I said. "God bless him," she murmured, buttering toast. "This child of yours wants jelly or honey?" "Child of mine wants both," Jaden declared, and Lauren laughed. I watched the way she held the knife. I don't know why I watched that. Maybe because it was something that should be simple and settled and suddenly wasn't. The day moved forward because that's how days are built. Shoes found, lunch packed, a kiss pressed to a squirming forehead. Daniel came downstairs in a clean shirt, kissed his wife, his son, the top of my head, and hurried out with a travel mug and a love y'all tossed over his shoulder. The door shut. Quiet came back and sat at the table with me. Lauren washed the knife, set it to dry, and turned to me. "You okay?" she asked, and it was not a performance. Her forehead tucked in that small, genuine concern that had charmed me since the first Sunday dinner she spent with us. "I'm fine," I said. My mouth was honest. The rest of me was not. She tied her hair up. No towel now, just a neat twist pinned in place. A strand slipped free and curved against her cheek, like a note that wouldn't resolve. She caught me looking and grinned. "What?" she said, playful. "I got soap on my face?" "Nothing," I said. "You look happy." "Hot showers are baptism for the heathen," she joked, and I laughed because that's what the scene required. When she left for the pharmacy, 10 minutes, Evie. We're low on allergy meds." I stood at the sink and watched the street instead of the clock. The block looked exactly itself. Ms. Rodriguez sweeping her stoop in slow, satisfied strokes. The mailman walking like a metronome. A boy on a bike deciding whether to obey a stop sign. Nothing around me registered the earthquake that had carefully slipped a hand under my floorboards. What do you do with a fact that refuses to fit? I dried my hands and reached for the notebook I keep by the phone, the one with grocery lists and church announcements and the number of a plumber who never returns calls. I opened to a clean page and wrote the date across the top. Then, under it, Michael called. Says Lauren boarded his flight. Lauren in our shower at the same time. I looked at the line. The line looked back. I closed the notebook and pushed it away as if it might catch. On my way to the hallway, I passed the trash and saw, sitting on top like it didn't belong to the rest, an empty box of hair dye. The color on the front was called Autumn Chestnut. Lauren's hair was the same dark as always. I told myself there were a dozen reasons for dye you didn't use. I told myself I was being nosy. I told myself many things, and all of them sounded like someone talking in the next room. I stepped outside to get air I could see all the way through. Rose Brown, my neighbor and friend of 30 years, sat on her stoop, shelling snap peas into a metal bowl, the sound a soft green heartbeat. "Morning, Evie," she said, and squinted at my face. "You look like you forgot the last line of a hymn." "What would you do," I asked, "if you heard a truth and saw another one standing right in your hallway?" She flicked a pea into the bowl and didn't answer right away. Rose believes in letting questions spread out before she steps in them. "I would hold both in my hands until one started to weigh more," she said finally, "and then I'd ask why." Back in the kitchen, the kettle had cooled. The tea had gone a little too strong, bitter at the edges the way I like it when something needs bracing. I took a sip and looked up at the ceiling. The shower had been quiet for a long time. The house was quiet too, a kind of quiet that made it easy to hear everything you didn't want to. I wish I could say I knew right then what to do. Call Daniel, call Michael back and ask him the sort of questions that make a mother sound like a detective. March upstairs and ask Lauren to explain an impossibility between one towel and one airplane seat? I did none of that. I rinsed the cup, turned the mug upside down on the rack, and listened to the way porcelain clicked against metal. Sometimes the only thing you can do with a mystery is not drop it. Later, when I think back on that day, I will remember the obvious things: the shower, the phone call, the neat knot of a bathrobe. But I will also remember a smaller thing I almost let slide: the way Lauren's right hand, her right, smoothed Jaden's cowlick before she walked out the door. I had always thought of her as a lefty, the way she sliced tomatoes into moons. I told myself I was misremembering. I told myself the mind plays games when the heart is afraid. I told myself the truth would keep until morning. I was wrong. By evening, I had convinced myself the morning would prove itself a fluke. Then the day began to lay out small, careful differences like needles on a table. Lauren signed a field trip permission slip for Jaden. Quick, tidy, like always. But the letters leaned right instead of left, a slope that felt like a whisper in the wrong ear. She caught me watching and waggled the paper. "We good to send this in?" she asked, bright as kitchen light. "Put it in his folder," I said. I told myself nobody, or almost nobody, signs their name exactly the same way twice. My hand reached for my notebook anyway. I didn't buy it to be a detective, just a spiral-bound book with a sunflower on the cover, the kind you keep grocery lists in. I opened to a clean page, dated the corner, and wrote, "Signature more upright. Right-handed with pen. Usually left?" "What are you up to, Miss Evie?" Lauren asked, rinsing a knife. The blade flashed once and went still in her right hand. "Church announcements," I said. It wasn't a lie. I set the potluck dates on the next line and underlined them twice. Below that, I wrote, "Knife in right hand again." At lunch, she brewed coffee for herself, black, no sugar, the house quick filling with a dark smell that made me think of rain on hot pavement. For 2 years, Lauren has been a green tea woman, honey and lemon, the color of late afternoon. "Trying to keep my eyes open," she said with a laugh when I looked too long at the mug. "Long night?" I asked. "Couldn't sleep," she said, shrugging. "Happens." She reached for Jaden's banana, peeled it in 4 fast motions, and handed the top half to him like it was a practice trick. The peel curled the other way than I remembered. I wrote that down too, and immediately hated myself for it. I don't know when noticing turned into cataloging. Maybe when Ms. Lee from 2 doors down waved on our way to the corner store and Lauren didn't wave back. Not rude, just a fraction late. A beat that makes music fall apart. "Who's that?" she asked, pleasant as pie. "You've borrowed sugar from her twice," I said. She smiled, thoughtful. "Right, of course. Sorry, my brain's full of grocery lists." When we got home, Jaden dragged out his memory game, the one with animal cards. Lauren knelt and played as if she meant it. She always did. "Your turn, big man," she said, and Jaden flipped 2 cards at once, triumphant. "Lion and lion," he crowed. "2 tigers," she corrected lightly, then laughed at herself. "I mean, brave lions. Sorry, I need that coffee." I wrote, "Names of neighbors, animal mix-up, coffee again. These are not crimes. These are crumbs. But crumbs are how you know something has been eaten." The perfume was different too. Lauren's scent when she hugged you used to be vanilla and something warm, like a bakery that kept its secrets. That afternoon she smelled like mint and stones washed by rain. Clean, lovely, but not hers. "New perfume?" I asked carefully. "Sample from the pharmacy," she said. "You like it?" "It's fresh," I said, which is what you say when you are not sure. I kept thinking of the hair dye box I'd seen in the trash. Autumn chestnut. Her hair looked the same. I lifted the trash lid, stared, put it down again. If there is a sin for grandmothers who go back to the bin, I committed it twice that day. When Daniel came home, the house did that thing it does for a minute. Took a breath, remembered where everyone sits. He kissed his wife, his son, my cheek, in that order, and asked what was for dinner before the question finished leaving his mouth. Baked chicken, green beans, Lauren said. She moves like a woman raised by a metronome, every motion balanced, everything in its place. Only while she set the table, I noticed she put the fork on the right of Daniel's plate. She stared at it a beat, blinked, moved it left. "Would you look at me?" she said with a soft laugh. "Backwards day." Daniel didn't notice. Men blessed with steady lives rarely do until the pictures fall off the wall. We ate. We talked about the union meeting and a tire that needed replacing and Jaden's spelling word he didn't like because it looked like a snake. Small family pieces. After, Lauren rinsed plates and hummed, the way she hums every night, only the tune was new. For years she hums, leaning on the everlasting arms, the hymn turning small circles on her breath. Tonight it was quicker, a city rhythm I didn't know, something with stairs and lights in it. When she finished the dishes, she sat with Jaden and checked his homework. "What's 8 plus 5? She asked. 13, he said. "What's 13 minus 8? 5, he said, suspicious. "Are these tricks?" "Only the old ones," she said. "Same as good recipes." "Like your peach cobbler," he said with reverence. "My cobbler," she said. And then she hesitated, the smallest pause, like a bird landing too hard on a wire. "Yes," she finished, brightening, "my cobbler." Only her eyes had already traveled to me, just for a second, the way you look to someone who holds the real recipe. I went to make tea and opened the cabinet where she keeps the sugar. The jar had moved one shelf down. Nothing remarkable lives in that sentence, unless you are the person who never moves it. Later, when the house slept, Daniel's steady breath, Jaden's dream sounds like small motorcycles, I heard the soft pad of feet in the kitchen. I told myself to stay put. I got up anyway, the way old bones get up when something unseen taps them. I stopped in the hallway, where the light from the stove made a square on the floor. Lauren stood at the counter, back to me, shoulders bowed as if she were praying. Her hair, dark and damp again, fell down the middle of her spine. She had a piece of paper under her hand and a pen in the other. She wrote, paused, wrote, paused. I thought of the permission slip. I stepped forward enough to make the floor creak. She capped the pen and turned with a start, then smiled in the same breath. "You scared me," she said softly. "I was making the lunch list. Bread, milk, apples." "Thank you," I said. My voice did not say I'd seen her slide the top paper under the bottom one so quickly it might have been a trick. I made myself a glass of water I didn't want and went back to bed. In the morning, I told myself I would not play games. I told myself I would ask one plain question and accept a plain answer. After breakfast, I pulled the family photo album from the shelf, the one Lauren loves to look at on Sundays, telling the story of each picture like she's lived inside all of them. I opened to the day at Liberty State Park, Jaden's 3rd birthday, the sky so blue it hurt. "Do you remember this?" I asked, like I always do, like an old woman offering a favorite song. "Of course," she said, smiling. "He cried because the candle was blue instead of red." "He cried because the wind blew it out," I said gently. "Daniel relit it with a match. You said the match made you nervous." "Oh," she said, and laughed at herself. "Right. I mixed up the parties." She has a right to mix things up. We all do. If I am building a case here, it's a poor one. If I am building a story, it's already too long. I made a pot of oatmeal, and sprinkled cinnamon in the shape of a heart and told Jaden to eat around the edges to make it last. At school drop-off, Miss Turner, the secretary, leaned out the office window and called, "Tell Dr. Ramirez we need his new fax number for records, will you, Lauren?" "Sure thing," Lauren said. We got back to the sidewalk before she frowned. "Dr. Patel," she said aloud. "Isn't it Patel?" "Pediatrician's Dr. Ramirez," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Since he was born." "Right," she said quickly. "Right. Sorry. I had coffee instead of a brain." On the walk home, she took my arm the way a daughter does when she isn't thinking about it. Her hand was warm. Her fingers were different. Not their shape, not their softness, just where she rested them, the exact groove between elbow and forearm, as if her body knew me from a slightly different angle. "Evie," she said after a while, "am I acting strange? I feel like I left the oven on, and I can't find which burner." It was such an honest question it made my eyes prickle. "You're tired," I lied gently. "We've all been tired since Christmas." She nodded, relieved by an answer that put the lid back on the pot. "I might lie down after lunch," she said. Rose was on her stoop again when we turned onto our block, shelling peas like a metronome. She lifted 2 fingers in greeting and called, "Hey, sugar," and Lauren's wave finally arrived on time. A cat skittered under a car. Somewhere a radio played an old Sam Cooke song that made the street feel like memory with sneakers on. At home, Lauren reached for the pantry, paused, and opened the wrong door. "Backwards day," she joked again, softer. She took a breath I could hear and let it go as if it weighed something. After she lay down, I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook and wrote everything I could remember without judging myself for the remembering. Right-handed knife, coffee, not tea. Perfume like rain, Miss Lee's name, Dr. Ramirez versus Patel, fork on the right, humming a different tune, hair dye box, signature, writing at night. Then, at the bottom of the page, I wrote a question I did not want to write. If Michael saw her bored, who was in my house? I closed the notebook, slid it under the napkins, and stared at the quiet cupboard as if it might answer me. The refrigerator hummed. A truck downshifted outside. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Not the weight of a thief, just a sleeping woman turning over. I called Michael when the noise of lunchtime died down to something manageable. "You sure?" I asked without hello. "You certain?" "I'm certain of the passport," he said. I could hear the fatigue of sky hours even over the phone. "I'm certain of the face. I am not certain of anything that came after because I had to fly a metal tube full of strangers safely to Miami." "Ma, do you want me to talk to Daniel?" "No," I said too quickly. "Not yet." I could feel him choosing to trust me. "Text me if you need me," he said. "I'll be on the ground at 6. Don't scare yourself alone." When we hung up, I stared at the salt and pepper shakers until they looked like little people. I wanted the kind of problem you can fix with a screwdriver. Lauren came downstairs late afternoon, hair pulled back, eyes bright, like a woman who'd slept hard and forgiven the morning. "I'm running to the pharmacy," she said, grabbing her purse. 10 minutes. Allergy meds." "Do you need cash?" I asked, stalling myself without admitting it. "I'm good," she said, and the door clicked behind her with that careful sound you make when people are resting. I stood a long time listening to the quiet she left. Then I went to the hallway closet and reached for my husband's old jacket, the one that still smells faintly of cedar and aftershave no one makes anymore. I put it on and felt the weight settle across my shoulders like a thought I'd been trying not to have. I am a church woman. I am not a spy. But there are days when you become the person you need and apologize to God later. I slipped my notebook into the pocket, stepped onto the porch, and watched the street where Lauren had vanished around the corner. The late sun lay flat across the concrete. The air had that city sweetness, laundry and car exhaust and something frying 3 houses down. "Where you off to, Evie?" Rose called softly from her stoop, without looking up from her peas. "To get an answer," I said, and started walking. I waited until the door had finished being careful behind her. Then I counted to 60, slow, the way I used to calm a crying baby, and stepped off the porch in my husband's old jacket, pockets heavy with nothing but nerves, and a spiral notebook. Lauren took the left at the corner where the pharmacy sits, only she didn't go in. She moved past it without a glance, purse tucked close, head down like a woman following a list nobody else could see. I kept to the shady side of the street, stopping when she stopped, pretending to fiddle with my phone when she looked back. Old ladies are allowed to fumble. The sun had turned that end-of-day bronze, making everything honest. The cracks in the sidewalk, the gum freckles on the curb, the way my shadow limped a little where my knee does. She cut across to the avenues behind the light rail where the blocks change. They don't make a speech about it, but they do. Fresh paint gives way to flaking stoops, iron gates lean a little, and the bodega keeps the good razor blades behind plexiglass. A boy on a BMX carved the street like a knife. Fried fish and bleach took turns on the breeze. I told myself I could still turn back and tell no one what I hadn't seen yet. At the corner with the mural of a blue heron wading through lilies that don't grow here, Lauren slowed. She checked her phone, then slipped down a narrow side street I don't use after dark. House numbers marched in crooked lines. She stopped at one with peeling green trim and a crooked satellite dish. And then she did something small that made my scalp tighten. She knocked in a pattern, 2 slow, 1 quick. I flattened myself behind a city trash can not built for hiding. My heart banged like it wanted out. It is a strange thing to feel your age and your audacity at the same time. The door opened. A woman stood in the shadow. For a moment, my mind refused the gift of my eyes. The face was Lauren's and not. Same bones, same mouth, a birthmark like a comma hiding near the collarbone. But this woman held herself as if the room had a low ceiling. Her hands were turned slightly inward, palms soft and open like apology. Her hair was parted on the other side, damp at the ends as if it had been washed in a hurry. She looked at Lauren the way a clock looks at someone who's late. "You're early," she said, voice softer, rounder. 10 minutes isn't early," Lauren answered, breezing past as if doors existed to be passed through. "I've got an hour." The woman glanced up and down the street, nerves like bird wings beating behind her eyes. If she saw me, she didn't show it. The door shut. The knock pattern echoed in my head. 2 slow, 1 quick, as if it were something I should already have known. I stood there and argued with myself the way only a church woman can. "Leave them be, Evie. This is not your business, Evie. Your business is your family, Evie. Exactly, Evie." I stepped out from behind the can and stared at the door so long it started to look like a question mark. Then I went up the 3 shaky steps and knocked like a stranger. Plain, honest, no code. The second woman opened, not far, chain still on. Up close, the likeness was worse. It was like meeting a photograph that had learned to breathe. Her eyes flicked to the jacket, to my face, down the street, back to my face. "Can I help you?" she asked. Politeness stretched thin over fear. "My name is Evelyn Carter," I said, steadying my voice on the rail. "I'm Jaden's grandmother. If you've ever watched a person swallow a truth that doesn't belong to them, you know the way the throat moves. Hers did that." She glanced over her shoulder, then back at me. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Inside, a chair scraped. Lauren's voice came from a room to the left, bright and bored. "Who is it?" The woman on the chain didn't answer. We looked at each other through 3 inches of air and a steel link. I saw the line of a small scar near her thumb, pale as thread. I saw hair dye stains darkening the cuticle on her right index finger. I saw the kind of tired that lives in the eyes of people who cannot afford to sleep when they need to. "Please," I said, I need the truth." Something in that word unlocked her. She slid the chain, opened the door, and stepped back without inviting me like a hostess, more like someone making a space where a thing must happen. The room was small, the kind of small that carries heat even in mild weather. Couch clean but old, blanket folded with pride, a television that had learned patience. A candle burned on the windowsill, not for romance, but to keep the room from smelling like pipes. Lauren appeared in the doorway, phone in one hand, the kind of smile people use when they plan to win. For a second, she froze. Then she laughed in a way that made my skin go cold. "Well, that's dramatic," she said. "Evie, meet." "Don't," the other woman said quickly, the word too tender to be a command. She stood with her hands at her sides, fingers curling and uncurling like they were practicing being brave. "Meet my sister," Lauren finished anyway, satisfied with the shape the word made in the air. "There, everybody's updated." I had expected a lie or a performance, anything but the simple cruelty of the truth, tossed like a coin. Sister. My brain tried to put that word into the slot where wife goes, and where mother goes, and where daughter-in-law goes, and nothing lined up. It was the right key for a door I didn't know we owned. "She's exaggerating," the sister said. Her voice had the soft pull of Mississippi in it. Or maybe I put my own past there to make sense of her. She hesitated, then chose a name like a small yes. "I'm Leah." The name rang somewhere in me like a struck glass. Leah. Close enough to Lauren to be kin, far enough to be herself. She wiped her hands on her skirt like someone who had just finished a job no one would pay her for. Lauren leaned against the door frame with a confidence that looked rented by the hour. "You've met us both," she said lightly. "Do you feel better? Will there be a lecture about morality now, or can we fast forward? Time is money." Leah flinched at that. It was tiny, but I saw it. I saw a lifetime of flinches in that one small motion. "Why?" I asked. The word came out raw. Lauren rolled her eyes as if I'd asked why rain is wet. "Because sometimes a person needs to handle 2 lives, and one body is an inconvenience," she said. "Because men do it all the time and write novels about it. Because I like my freedom and my family, and I'm clever enough to have both." Leah looked down at the floor. "It isn't like that," she said to the floorboards. "What is it like?" I asked her, not moving my eyes from her face. "Tell me what it is like." Lauren sighed theatrically. "God, Evie, don't make this a kitchen table confession. I have a flight." The word flight scraped across me. Michael's voice from the morning came back like an echo down a long hallway. "Passport says Lauren Williams. Seat 14A, Miami, Santiago." Leah's hands knotted together. "She asked me to help sometimes," she said, voice low, careful like a person stepping in a room full of sleeping babies. "Not always, just sometimes. She paid me. I wanted..." She cut herself off, cheeks going pink with a shame that didn't belong here alone. "Wanted what?" Lauren prompted with a smile that didn't reach anything inside her. Leah swallowed. "To pay rent on time," she murmured, then forced her chin up a notch. "And because your home is..." She looked at me, apology and longing wrestling in her eyes. "It's peaceful there," she finished simply, like a person telling the truth because she doesn't know how to lie well enough. Lauren clapped once, a small sound that still hurt. "Sweet, isn't it? Everyone gets what they want. You get your perfect routines. I get 2 days where no one needs me to staple a permission slip straight. She gets to not worry about eviction for 5 minutes. She checked her phone. And now, I get to go. You're a mother, I said, the words steady because if they weren't, I would shake. You are a mother in my house. And I make sure the mothering gets done, she said breezy. You, of all people, should appreciate logistics, Evie. Did the boy eat? Yes. Homework done? Yes. Kisses dispensed? Oh, a surplus. Check, check, check. Leah stood very still. I thought wildly of the way she had handled a banana. 4 quick motions, clean and practiced. How many small kindnesses had lived inside a lie? If you are going to yell, do it now, Lauren said. I'm due at the airport in 40. I looked at her and saw 2 things at once. The woman who had set sugar in front of me 100 mornings, and a stranger who watched me like I was a slow obstacle at a crosswalk. I turned to Leah, who watched me like a person watching weather move in fast. How long? I asked her. Have you been in my kitchen? Leah's eyes flicked to Lauren, then back to me. She didn't answer. That, more than any number, hurt. Lauren slid a ring of keys into her purse. Lecture over, she said. Evie, you can untwist your pearls. Your boy will be fine. Kids are resilient. Everything else is an adult problem. You don't get to decide what is an adult problem, I said, too soft to be the slap it felt like inside me. You made the problem a family. She smiled like a woman stepping into sunlight. Then the family will adapt. She brushed past me, the mint and stone perfume touching my sleeve like a cold hand. At the door, she paused, turned with a brightness that would have charmed a room that didn't know her. Lock up when you leave, Leah, she said, and don't be late tomorrow. He notices when you stumble on the neighbor's name. The door shut. The house caught the echo and set it down somewhere I couldn't reach. I stood in the quiet with the second woman who had my daughter-in-law's face and a different soul. For a long breath, we listened to the hallway, like it might decide what happened next. I'm sorry, Leah said, so softly I almost missed it. I should have told you the first time I boiled your tea too long. I should have known the first time you hummed a different hymn, I answered. We looked at each other like people inspecting a mirror for a crack you feel, but can't see. How do we fix this? I asked, not because I thought she knew, but because I needed the question out where the air could touch it. Leah's mouth trembled, then steadied. I don't know, she said, but I don't think we fix it by pretending you weren't just standing at my door. I nodded, and for the first time since morning, my breath came in without bargaining. I reached into my pocket and felt the cheap spiral metal pinch my fingers. I did not open the notebook. There are moments when recording a thing makes it smaller. This wasn't one. This was the moment the story changed shape. Behind us, the candle flickered. Outside, a bus sighed at a stop, doors folding like a chest exhaling. Somewhere, someone turned up a radio. Time, rude as always, kept going. Tell me your name again, I said, because names are where you begin when you don't know the ending. Leah, she said, and this time she didn't whisper. The room felt like it had been cleaned with care and not enough money. Leah motioned me to the couch and sat on the edge of a chair the way you do when you aren't sure you're invited to your own life. Between us, on a thrifted coffee table, lay a spiral notebook with the corner bent backward, lined paper, cheap pen, the same kind I keep by the phone for lists that should be simple. Do you want water? She asked. Only if you'll have some, I said, and when she handed me a glass, it was cold, in that way. Tap water is when you run it long enough to feel less poor. For a minute, we did nothing but hold the glasses. The candle on the sill flickered. Outside, a bus exhaled and moved on like a thought you couldn't catch. How long? I asked. She looked at the table, then at me. A year, she said. On and off. sometimes 2 days, once a week, twice when she wanted longer. Longer for what? Leah's mouth pressed into a line that wasn't anger so much as habit. To be where being her didn't require bedtime stories, she said softly. She said I was better at those anyway. My hand tightened around the glass. Did you ever leave my grandson alone? No. It came fast, clean. She shook her head as if to make the no bigger. Never. I swear to you on my mother's good name, and she didn't have much else to leave us. Did you sleep in my son's bed? The question tasted like a bitter medicine, necessary and humiliating. Color climbed her throat. No, she whispered. I slept on the couch. I folded it every morning. I kept my shoes by the door. I tried to be air. I believed her. You can hear a lie catch. Her truth didn't catch. It landed. She reached for the notebook and then stopped herself, like a person caught reaching for bread in someone else's kitchen. I nodded toward it. What do you write? Things I need to remember, she said. She opened to a page near the back, careful, like turning a hymn book in church. I saw neat rows. Miss Lee, 2 houses down, cat named Sable. Jaden's teacher, Miss Turner, likes sunflowers. Oatmeal, cinnamon heart. Favorite story, green truck, blue sky. Fork on left, sugar top shelf. My breath pinched. You study us, I said. Not accusation exactly. More the ache of being both seen and mistaken. I try not to get it wrong, she said. Sometimes I still do. Who are you to my daughter-in-law? I asked, even though the answer already hung in the air like a draft. Her twin, she said, and it fit the space between us the way a missing tooth fits a mouth, everything else rearranged to make room. We were together until we weren't. Foster home, then 2. She ran forward. I learned how to stand still. She found a way to be what she is. She made a small, helpless motion with her hands, a child showing a broken toy. She found me last year, said there was an easy job if I could keep my head down and my eyes open. Did she threaten you? I asked. No, Leah said after a beat. Not with words, with money, with what it feels like to say yes to the electric bill, with how it feels to sleep in a place where no one yells. She said I'd be helping. She said everybody wins if nobody asks too many questions. Everybody, I repeated, and felt the words stick. She folded her hands in her lap, fingers worrying at a dye stain near her nail bed. Autumn chestnut, I thought, the color in my trash. I told myself I was protecting the boy's routine, she said. I told myself she'd stop. I told myself a lot of stories. You can live a long time on stories if you don't look straight at them. Where does she go? I asked, when she's not being mother enough to require bedtime stories. Different places, Leah said. Sometimes Miami, sometimes Vegas. Once she said Paris like it was a joke she was letting me in on. I don't know who she's with. She never uses names. She doesn't bring him back to your house. She keeps the mess in other zip codes. Michael saw her board a flight this morning, I said. Passport and everything. Leah nodded, quick and ashamed, as if she'd failed to keep a promise that was never hers to make. She travels as herself. I stay as her. She calls it a relay race. The urge to put my head in my hands passed through me like a wave and left salt. I looked around the small room. A clean ashtray with a single paperclip in it. A plant trying its best in the wrong light. A photograph on the wall of 2 girls on a porch steps. Knees knobby, eyes wide. The porch boards were sun-silvered. The girls were unmistakable. One sat higher, chin tipped up, looking at the world like it owed her a stage. The other leaned in, half behind, half beside, looking at the same world like she'd hold the door for it. I stood and touched the frame with the back of my finger. She's the one on the top step, Leah said. I figured, I said. On the low shelf under the TV sat an envelope fat with cash, rubber banded. The band was wearing out. My eyes flicked to it. Leah followed the glance and set her palm lightly on top of it. Not to hide, more to bless. It's rent, she said, and groceries, and my sister's way of keeping me exactly where she wants me. Does Daniel know? I asked. It was a foolish question. I already knew the answer because I knew my boy's face when a thing was wrong, and I had not seen that face yet. No. She looked up, and grief met me full on. I didn't know how to tell him without breaking something I don't own. Something in me, old, stubborn, muscular, sat up. It's ours, I said. The breaking, it's our house. You've carried enough of what isn't yours. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. I don't want to hurt him, she said, or the boy, or you. You already have, I said, and then gentled it. Not by malice, by being part of a lie you didn't build. We sat in that small, hot quiet and let the words find their level. After a while, I asked, when she comes back, what does she tell you? Sometimes nothing, Leah said. Sometimes she brings me a lipstick or a blouse and says, costume department. Sometimes she says I did good work and pats my cheek like I'm 12. Once she said, if you weren't such a coward, you'd learn to want more. Leah's mouth twisted, as if wanting less is virtue. What do you want? I asked. She looked at me like no one had asked her that in a language she trusted. To sleep without listening for footsteps, she said. To bake something that comes out right. To answer to my own name. She glanced toward the door. To not be afraid of her. I took out my cheap spiral notebook, the one that had started to feel like armor, and set it next to hers. 2 sunflowers on 2 discount covers. It almost made me laugh. I wrote everything down, I said. The coffee, the fork on the right, the perfume. I thought I was going crazy. You were paying attention, Leah said. Most people don't. She counts on that. I'm going to tell my son, I said, feeling the words seat themselves in my spine. I don't know how to do it, soft or hard, but I am going to tell him today. Leah nodded as if she'd been braced for that from the first knock. Do you want me there? She asked, and there was courage in it, the kind that doesn't look like the movies. Not yet, I said. I want to keep the boy out of it until we can put a net under him. I picked up my notebook. If we ask you to come talk, will you? Yes, she said. I won't run. I stood. The room felt even smaller now that decisions were in it. At the door, I turned back. If she tells you to come tomorrow, I said, don't. Not until we talk. Fear flashed, then steadied. She doesn't like to hear no. She's going to hear it anyway, I said, from me. I walked back through a city that had the nerve to be ordinary. A kid hopping Scotch squares chalked in the wrong place, a man smoking in a window, the bodega cat curled into the shape of a comma. Rose was still on her stoop, shelling peas like they were pennants. She looked up at my face and didn't make me say it. Well, she asked. Twins, I said, the word strange and perfect in my mouth. She hired her sister to wear my mornings while she wore her nights. Rose's eyebrows went someplace sermon-worthy. Lord have mercy, she said, not as a curse, as a plea. You gonna tell your boy? I am, I said. I need you to pray that I don't swing first and speak second. She patted the step beside her. I sat. She put her warm palm over my weathered knuckles and held on. We didn't pray out loud. We let the street say amen in its own languages. Inside, I washed my face in cool water and watched a woman in the mirror who has buried a husband and a sister and the last dog and still knows how to set a table. I dried my hands and texted Michael. You were right about the flight, not about the shower. There are 2 of her. He called immediately. Ma? Twins, I said again. She pays the other one to live my days while she spends her nights where she wants. He went quiet long enough that I heard gate announcements I'd never hear any other way. You want me there before 6? He asked. No, I said. This is between me and my eldest first, then we'll widen the circle. Daniel's going to take it like a man who keeps his promises, he said, which is to say, hard. I'm on standby if you need me. I know. At 4:30, I started dinner because that is what my hands know to do when my heart is campaigning. Chicken, green beans, rice. I set the table and set the fork very much on the left, like planting a flag. Jaden came in from the backyard with grass knees and the kind of joy that should be illegal in times like these. He showed me a worm and asked if it had a mama. Everything has a mama, I said, and kissed the top of his head while my stomach twisted. At 5:15, Daniel came home. Keys, kiss, love y'all. Same as always. Only his eyes went straight to my face, and he paused. You okay, Ma? I need you at the table after we eat, I said. I kept my voice steady the way you do when you hold a plaster wall so it doesn't crack under its own weight. No TV, no phone, just us. He nodded. A soldier called into the small war. Okay. At 5:32, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Be home late. Don't wait up. Kiss the boy for me. Mint and stone letters on my screen. I showed Daniel the phone and tucked it under the napkins like evidence. He looked puzzled and then let it go because men let a lot go until the hinge gives. We ate. Jaden told us about a science video where a volcano made out of baking soda and vinegar went off like the 4th of July. He asked if we could try it on the porch. He asked if worms like rice. He asked if I would come to career day and say I was a professional grandma. I am, I said, and he nodded like the matter was settled with the universe. After dishes, after the small bustle that makes a house feel held, I sent Jaden to draw a volcano and told him I wanted to see all the lava. Then I sat Daniel at the kitchen table that has hosted 20 years of bills and laughter and the great neutrality of Tuesday. I took the chair across from him, put my hands on the wood, and felt all the rings of trees under paint. Before I tell you, I said, I need you to remember 2 things. Your boy is safe, and you are loved. His jaw worked, the tell he can't hide. I am going to say a sentence you will want to throw back at me. Don't. He nodded once. Say it. There are 2 Laurens, I said. They are twins. One of them has been in our kitchen while the other boarded planes. He didn't speak. His face didn't crumple. It learned stillness the way stone learns its own weight. He reached for the phone under the napkins like a man reaching for a handle that isn't there. He didn't find anything new. He put the phone down carefully, as if a wrong move would explode the room. How long? He asked finally. A year, I said. Is the boy... He stopped himself, throat working. Is Jaden okay? Yes, I said. He has been tucked in by gentle hands every time, even if they weren't the hands we thought. His eyes closed briefly with a gratitude so painful, I had to look at my own hands. When he opened them, they were not the same eyes. Who is she? He asked. The other one. Her name is Leah, I said. She is not your wife. She is your wife's sister, and she is sorry. He nodded once, twice, as if practicing the movement for the first time. Where is Lauren? Gone, I said. Airport, probably. She texted she'll be late. He leaned back, then forward, then put his head in his hands and covered his eyes with his palms like a boy who has realized the rules of the game were different all along. I don't even know what to ask, he said into his skin. Ask me anything, I said. And if I don't know, I will say, I don't know. He lifted his head. Did they? He stopped, and I saw the worst question in the world crowd his mouth. Did she? He swallowed. Was there, when I... No, I said quickly. Leah slept on the couch. She kept her shoes by the door. She tried to be air. He let out a breath that was not relief exactly, but relief's cousin. Then he put both elbows on the table like he needed the wood to hold him up. We're going to fix this, he said, and the word fix sounded like a man choosing to stand up in a flood. We're going to tell the truth, I said. Fix might be beyond us. He nodded, eyes going to the clock like he could bargain with it. Don't tell the boy yet, he said. Not until we know what we're telling. Agreed. He looked at me, and under the anger, under the humiliation, under the grief, I saw the same man who put a ring on a young woman's finger in a church basement and promised what he understood of forever. He rubbed his palm over his mouth. Call her, he said. Not Lauren, the sister. Ask her to come here after Jaden's asleep. I want to hear it from a mouth that doesn't lie on purpose. I nodded. My fingers shook a little as I texted Leah. After 9, back door. We will be kind. We will be honest. Please come. Her reply came in 2 words that made me love her against my will. I'll come. I tucked the phone away and went to sit with Jaden while he drew his volcano. He colored the lava too bright and the sky too blue, the way children teach the world to be more than it is. He asked if lava hurts. Only if you try to hold it, I said, and kissed his temple. At 8:58, the house was quiet. The dishwasher hummed. Daniel sat at the table with his hands folded and a look like weather coming. I put the kettle on because there ought to be something warm in the room when the cold arrives. At 9:03, the back door clicked. Soft, careful. I rose, smoothed my skirt like that could tidy the truth, and went to meet the woman who wore my mornings like a borrowed dress. I didn't know exactly what would happen after I opened that door. I only knew what wouldn't. The lie would not come in ahead of her anymore. The lie had a key to the front door. The truth came to the back and knocked softly. Leah stepped in with her shoulders tucked, palms open at her sides like she was entering a sanctuary after the benediction. I had the kettle already talking on the stove. Daniel was at the table, hands folded, looking like a man holding himself on the right side of a thin line. No yelling, I said, because rules are a kind of kindness. The boy's asleep. We keep our voices low and our words plain. Leah nodded. Her eyes went to Daniel's face and stayed there, steady in a way I hadn't seen in her yet. My name is Leah, she said, as if he'd given her permission to carry it. How long? Daniel asked, voice level. Have you been in my house pretending to be my wife? A year, she said. Not every day. Sometimes 2 in a row, sometimes once a week, never nights. I slept on the couch. Daniel's jaw worked. Did you ever touch my son like a stranger would? No. Clean. Immediate. I brushed his hair. I checked his homework. I tucked him in. She swallowed. I did not take anything from him that didn't belong to me. The kettle clicked off. I poured, because people ought to hold something warm when the cold is in the room. Leah wrapped her fingers around the mug like shelter. Daniel didn't touch his. Why? He said. Leah looked at her hands. Because she asked, she said softly. Because she paid. Because I told myself keeping his routines was better than leaving him to wonder why the day kept changing shape. She lifted her eyes. Because I am poor, Mr. Carter, and because your house was quiet. You let her live 2 lives and call it clever, Daniel said. You let me kiss a lie good morning. You kissed her, Leah said, and the words were a flinch. I kept my face out of your reach. If you kissed my cheek by accident, I moved away. I am sorry. She didn't dress the apology. She said it between us like bread. Daniel's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced down. Lauren, be home in 20. Don't wait up if you're tired. He turned the screen toward me so I could see the mint and stone words, then set it face down like a lid. Tell me everything I need to know before she walks in here, he said. Leah took a breath and unknotted. She told us about the first time, how Lauren found her, the envelope of cash, the instructions scribbled like a recipe. Left fork, sugar top shelf, cinnamon heart on oatmeal. She told us about the knock, 2 slow, 1 quick. About the perfumes, the coffees, the stories she memorized because she didn't want to be the thing that broke the surface of our days. She slid her own cheap spiral notebook out of her purse and set it beside my sunflower one. 2 small books of evidence. 2 women trying not to lose their place. She calls it a relay race, Leah said. She runs where no one stops her and hands me the baton before anyone looks up. Daniel leaned in, elbows on the wood we'd sanded ourselves 20 years ago. And what do you call it? Wrong, Leah said, like a person naming weather. Even when I could breathe in it, especially then. The back door clocked time in the quiet. Upstairs, the house shifted the way old houses do when they remember how many stories they've already carried. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands and looked toward the hallway where Jaden slept. We tell him nothing until we can tell him something that won't pull the floor out, he said. That's right, I said. At 19 minutes, the front lock turned. Lauren came in with the expensive tired on her, the kind that looks like a choice. She stopped when she saw Leah at our table, then smiled slow, like a woman who believes she can win any room with a good dress and a mean line. Well, she said brightly, setting her purse on the counter. Look at us. Book club. Daniel didn't stand. Sit, he said. She glanced at the clock, at the kettle, at me, at Leah. I'm not sure I have time for... Sit, he repeated, calm enough to carry all the things it wasn't. She sat, crossing her legs like a stage cue. If this is about prudish definitions of fidelity, let me save us some hours. I have range. You married a woman with range. You married a man who believed you when you said you'd be home, Daniel said. I didn't sign a consent form for a stranger to tuck my son in. She's hardly a stranger, Lauren said, a hand flicking toward Leah, a smile nearly kind if you didn't know where it would land. She's family. Then you should have introduced us, I said. My voice surprised me with how steady it was. At my table, without costumes. Lauren's mouth pinched. I kept the mess away from you, Evie. You got your piece. The boy got his lunches. Everyone wins if nobody auditions for martyrdom. The boy got lied to, Daniel said. So did I. She rolled her eyes like we were late to her point. This is about freedom, she said. I refuse to be the size of your expectations. Men do this for centuries and get novels and cigars. I do it, and you bring out a committee. This is about consent, Daniel said, and the word slotted into the room like a cornerstone. About telling me who is in my house, about respect we put in our vows because we understood the meanings on the day we said them. You want me to apologize? Lauren asked. Fine. I regret you seeing the seams. I regret underestimating your rigidity. Good God, I whispered, not as a curse. Daniel pushed back his chair. For a second, I saw the boy he'd been, freckles, scraped knees, that fierce quiet he inherited from my father. You will not stay here tonight, he said. You will come back tomorrow with your keys and your version of the truth for our lawyer. You will not use Leah like a cloak ever again. Lauren laughed, short, sharp. You can't fire me from my life. You resigned, Daniel said, so soft it stung. One relay at a time. She stood, gathering her purse, furious in a way that would have scorched us 2 years ago. Now it just turned the air hard. "You'll come to your senses," she said. "You'll realize routines matter more than your delicate pride. The boy doesn't care which set of hands folds his shirts. He will care who those hands belong to when he learns their names," I said. She looked at Leah then, with that sister knowledge that turns mercy into a map. "You," she said. "You think you're safe with their pity? You're still you." Leah didn't flinch. "Yes," she said, "I am." Lauren's smile came back meaner and smaller. She turned to the door without another word. When it shut, it rattled the frame the way anger does. A picture shifted on the wall. Daniel at 27, Lauren in white, Jaden a wish in the distance. I straightened it by habit, then let my hand fall. No one spoke. We listened to the echo of a life leaving and the house deciding not to follow. Daniel sat down again. He didn't look at Leah when he spoke. He looked at the wood, at the cheap spiral notebooks, at the steam unspooling from the mugs. "You will not come here tomorrow," he said to Leah. "Not until I figure out where the floor is. But in the morning, if you can be at the school by 2:30 to pick up my boy, I will be at the yard till 6. You do that. You text me when you have him. You bring him home. You come to the back door, and you hand him to my mother. Then you go. We can manage dinner. We can manage bedtime. We cannot manage pretending." Leah's breath hitched, then evened. "Yes," she said. "I will do exactly that. I don't want to be the surprise again." "You won't be," I said. "Not in this house." We made a plan right there, triple-checking where the net would be while we walked this tightrope. I would call the school in the morning and add Leah as Aunt Leah, with ID check. Daniel would take his lunch break to speak with a lawyer. Michael would come by after his shift to sit with Daniel while I took Jaden to the park, because little boys need slides on hard days. We did not say divorce out loud, but it sat with us like a necessary guest. "Do we tell him tomorrow?" I asked, meaning the child who would want a story that didn't bruise with every sentence. "Not the whole," Daniel said. "Not lies either. We tell him his mama needs to be away for a while. We tell him Aunt Leah helped before and will help again. We tell him none of this is his fault. We tell him we are not going anywhere. We tell him love is a verb," I said, because my mother liked to make grammar do work. Leah wiped at her eyes before tears thought they had the right. "If you ask me to disappear, I will," she said. "If you ask me to stay near for the boy, I will. I will do the thing that keeps him safest." Daniel finally looked at her. He saw her, not a copy, not a costume, a woman with his wife's face and a different spine. "Stay near," he said, "but not in my house, not until I can stand upright inside it." She nodded. "I'll leave my car key with you," she said, as if to prove she knew how to be trusted in small ways. "If anything changes, if you need me sooner, just text. 2 slow, 1 quick." She grimaced. "No, say green truck. He'll know it's for him. He loves that book." "Green truck," Daniel repeated, and it sounded like a piece of rope we might use later. When Leah left, she touched the door frame with her fingertips, the way some folks touch pews. I watched her cross the yard and vanish into the soft dark. The house exhaled. The dishwasher hummed its tired hymn. I made us chamomile and set a cup in front of my son. He didn't drink. "I keep thinking about all the mornings I loved," he said. "How many of them were her?" "You loved the mornings," I said. "They were real. Your love was real. It still is." He nodded like a man who does not yet believe and hopes one day he might. We sat together a long while, listening to the kind of quiet that keeps you from falling apart in one loud piece. I wrote in my notebook when he went upstairs to check on his boy. "Lauren won't sleep here. Leah will not pretend again. lawyers, school list, green truck. I stared at the words until they stopped swimming. On the next line, smaller, I wrote the thing I didn't know where to put. Truth does not fix what it breaks. It lets the breaking stop. When I turned out the kitchen light, the house gave a little settling sigh, as if the beams themselves had waited for a decision. I stood in the doorway and listened to my grandson's breath through the ceiling and my son's footsteps finding the path from door to bed without hitting the corners. In the quiet, I could hear tomorrow trying the knobs. I decided to meet it at the porch with coffee and the good sweater. Before I slept, I texted Rose, "It's done for tonight. Pray for the morning." She sent back a single word, "Always." The lie had left with the front door key. The truth, too big for any pocket, stayed. We made it a bed on the couch and told it we would see what kind of house it could live in. The first morning without a lie was louder than thunder. Jaden padded into the kitchen in dinosaur pajamas, hair standing up like he'd been struck by a friendly lightning. Daniel sat with his palms flat on the table as if balancing something invisible. I put the kettle on and looked at my boy the way you look at a bridge before you cross. "Buddy," Daniel said, voice careful. "Mama's going to be away for a while." "Work?" Jaden asked, suspicious of grown-up words. "Grown-up things," I said gently. "She loves you. We all do. Aunt Leah has helped us before. She's going to help again, with pickups and snacks and stories, until we make a new plan." Jaden frowned, trying to sort his puzzle pieces. "Two people with the same face," he said, testing the sentence out loud. "Like my cards." "Like your cards," I said. "Same picture, different backs, and none of this is your fault." He nodded, unsatisfied but held, then brightened. "Can we do the volcano after school?" "We can," Daniel said, and I counted that as the day's first mercy. By noon, I'd called the school and added Aunt Leah to the pickup list with the kind of calm administrator's trust. "ID check, till we all know each other's smiles," Miss Turner said, and I blessed that woman for not asking a single sideways question. Daniel spent his lunch hour with a lawyer who specialized in the kind of truth that hurts and helps. Michael texted a string of quiet check marks from a layover that smelled like pretzels and jet fuel. I set sugar back on the top shelf and left it there on purpose, a small flag for the country of honesty. At 2:30, Leah appeared at the school gate in plain, careful clothes. She kept to the line, showed her ID, signed her name without looking around to see who noticed. When Jaden ran out, she crouched so their faces met on one level. "Hey, big man," she said softly. "Green truck later." He grinned. She walked him home with his backpack high and her eyes steady, then handed him to me at the back door like a treasure. "I'll be around if you need me," she said, and left without stepping into the kitchen. That night, Lauren texted apologies so polished they squeaked. The lawyer called it positioning. I called it late. We changed the locks. The house exhaled a little, the way houses do when they realize they aren't required to lie for anyone anymore. Days learned our names again. We told the truth in age-appropriate spoonfuls. "Some people share a face," I told Jaden on the walk to school, "but nobody shares your place. You can love more than one person without running out." He thought about that, then asked if worms have birthdays. We bought cupcakes for the backyard just in case. In counseling on Thursdays, a woman with soft eyes and a spine like a level showed us how to stop speaking in fractures. "Name what hurt," she said, "so it stops owning the whole house." Daniel learned to say I was humiliated without swallowing glass. I learned to say I was scared without fixing it first. Jaden learned to say I'm confused without being told to pick a feeling. Leah, on the week she came, learned to sit with her hands open on her knees and speak as someone's self, not someone's substitute. Lauren came by once to collect boxes. She wore a dress that turned heads and an expression that dared ours to follow. She handed over her keys, signed what our lawyer needed, and told Daniel that routines mattered more than ceremony. "Routines matter," he said. "So does respect." She rolled her eyes at both and left with the mint and stone smell fading down the walk. After that, there were emails through attorneys, a visitation schedule she kept sometimes, and sometimes didn't, and a silence we learned to stop filling with guesses. When Jaden asked why Mama missed Saturday, we said, "Grown-up choices are not little boy problems. Let's get the green truck." We did. Spring slid into summer, and ordinary became a miracle we stopped staring at so it could do its work. Leah moved into a small place 3 blocks over. Clean walls, a second-hand couch that didn't sag, a plant that lived. She got a morning job at the community bakery, where the owner insisted she take home the rolls that misbehaved. On Tuesdays, she brought over a brown paper bag and said, "These were supposed to be circles." With a pride I understood. Some afternoons I found her and Jaden at the library, both with their tongues peeking out at the corners, both intent on a puzzle that insisted on being solved. She never came through the front door without knocking. She never stayed past bedtime unless asked. She paid her own light bill and kept the receipt clipped to a string like a diploma. One Sunday in July, we were late to church, the way families are late when forgiveness takes time. Rose pressed my hand in the pew. Pastor talked about truth as a narrow road, and I felt my feet find it. After the benediction, Ms. Lee hugged me the way women hug when they know something without requiring the story. "You're walking straighter," she whispered. "That's the Lord and your own spine." The divorce came through on a Wednesday, as quiet as a paper sliding under a door. Daniel stood in the kitchen with the envelope, thumb worrying the edge, and let the finality sit. He didn't cheer. He didn't cry. He set the paper in the drawer with the batteries and the instruction manuals and went to fix the loose hinge on the pantry, because some things you can fix with a screwdriver, and it's a waste not to. Grief took the long route through the house. It lingered in the hall where a wedding picture used to hang, in the curve of the spoon that had learned Lauren's hand. It left us and returned like weather. We made room. When Jaden asked if families could end, I said, "They change shape. Ours is building a new one." He said he didn't like change. I said I didn't either and cut his sandwich into stars because sometimes you need to bite hope on purpose. Somewhere in the late summer, I watched Daniel and Leah find a way to talk that wasn't about the mess. It started on the porch steps. 2 adults and 2 glasses of lemonade, the ice giving its tiny notes like chimes. They spoke like people who were tired of being careful and not ready to be careless. She told him about the foster homes that taught her how to be invisible and about the first time she bought a dress with her own cash. He told her about the day his father died and how he'd been angry at the casseroles for arriving hot. The conversation didn't glow. It held. I don't know the hour when feeling changed shape, when Daniel's eyes stopped scanning her face for sameness and started seeing a person who used to cook around fear. I know the day I caught him laughing in the driveway while she tried, earnestly and badly, to fix a bicycle chain with the wrong tool. I know the night he asked her to stay for supper and she said no because boundaries are a kind of love. And then he asked again a week later, and she said yes because so is permission. I watched for wrongness and found none. They didn't take shortcuts. They took sidewalks. When he reached for her hand, he did it where I could see and where his son could, later, if and when that was right. When the first neighbors murmured, because neighborhoods do, Rose smiled with all her teeth and said, "Honey, Grace is not a rumor." Miss Turner from the school waved and said she liked Leah's sunflowers on the teacher's lounge table. The bakery owner gave them an extra roll. The world, improbably, agreed to mind its business. On the first cool night of September, Daniel knocked on my bedroom door like a boy asking permission to be a man. "Walk with me to the park?" he asked. "I've got an errand to run." We crossed under the sycamores, turning their coins. Jaden bounced ahead, dribbling a tired basketball with conviction. Leah waited by the bench in a simple dress and worry in the corner of her mouth. Daniel took a breath I could hear and knelt. Not showy, not begging. A man making a promise with both feet on the ground. "I don't want a replacement or a fix," he said. "I want a life that tells the truth, even when it's small. Will you build that with me?" Leah looked at me the way a daughter looks at a mother when she forgets she's allowed. I nodded, and the nod surprised me with how much it had been waiting. She said yes, like a person opening a window that had been painted shut for years. Jaden threw his ball so high it insulted a tree and shouted, "Green truck," because that is how 7-year-olds say hallelujah. We married them in October in our church with the creaky fan. No spectacle. A dress that fit the day, and a suit that fit Daniel's shoulders. The pastor spoke about covenants that don't hide. Rose brought sweet potato pie and guarded it with a fork, like a saint with a sword. Michael cried without wiping his face because pilots are allowed to feel gravity too. Ms. Lee danced half a song and said her knees were still teenagers. Jaden carried the rings in his green truck lunchbox because some metaphors deserve an actual wheel. Leah moved into our house slowly, with drawers negotiated and photos added like careful stitches. She kept her apartment for a month, just in case, and then gave the keys back to the landlord with a smile that looked a lot like citizenship. She made peach cobbler that finally set right. It tasted like the first time a song finds its harmony. Lauren sends a card at Christmas and a picture from somewhere sunny in March. She comes when the schedule says and doesn't when it doesn't. We keep our porch light for those evenings and our rules for all the rest. When Jaden asks where Mama lives now, we say, "In a different house with different choices." He nods and asks for more syrup. Tonight I set the table, forks on the left, because some battles you win forever, and listen to my kitchen act like itself. Kettle, low. Laughter from the hallway, low. The news mumbling to itself, low. I opened my sunflower notebook to the last clean page and wrote, "Coffee, sometimes black, sometimes sweet. Perfume, vanilla on holidays. Nothing most days. Sugar, top shelf, on purpose. Humming, leaning on the everlasting arms. Off key, and we mean it." Then I added what I'd been carrying since the first terrible morning. Truth doesn't fix what it breaks. It frees what survives to grow. I closed the notebook and slid it under the napkins. Not to hide it, but to make room for plates. My family came in, my son with his steady shoulders, my grandson with a new grass stain, my daughter-in-law with flour on her cheek. We ate like people who had been hungry for a long time and finally remembered how to be full. After dishes, I stood on the porch with my cup in the dark doing its soft work. The street sang itself to sleep. Bodega gate rattling down, a train sighing, somebody's radio more memory than music. I thought about all the codes that used to run this house. 2 slow, 1 quick, and how we traded them for a single knock you don't have to decipher. We answer now. We set places for those who come honest. We keep a blanket on the couch for the truth when it wants to stretch out and rest. My name is Evelyn May Carter. I am 72, from Jackson by way of Jersey City. In this house, the sugar stays on the top shelf because we say so. The forks live on the left because we decide, and the light we let in doesn't ask for apology. It just does what light does, finds every corner, even the ones we were sure could never be warm again.